band.
Okay,
Yeah.
here's Santa.
We got a
Oh,
kayak
nice.
ornament last year.
Go
It doesn't have
Santa.
Santa on it. That's cute.
Ho ho ho.
Okay. We want some debris.
Sandbar over here.
Okay.
Should we grab a handful of sand?
What does this say? We need
Not sure.
we need a
That's the artist's signature.
bar.
STARA. STRA.
Oh, you just put it.
Strainer, maybe.
Good answer.
Okay.
We got a strainer.
No.
No.
Barbed wire.
This goes over there, yeah.
No strainer. All right.
We have a
Okay.
strainer.
Yeah, that
The
looks more
barbed
like a
wire is
strainer.
Just like a cow crossing. All right, who would I'll go first in introduction. Here's the strings that go with the white.
Nice.
Oh, the Eddie Lynch.
Wow.
So I'm Marlena Bertolozzi. I'm a certified ACA instructor.
With the chainsaw happening, come on up. Please come as close as you can get over here. So,
Thank you. And Sue will occasionally be my interpreter.
and I'm going to be like, the Saturday Night Live thing.
Okay, there you go.
Where I just yell, and she said.
Okay, so I've been paddling for a number of years on all different kinds of water. I started out as a whitewater paddler and have graduated to a almost flat water paddler. So that said, a few years ago, I guess it must have been at least 15, Steve Laporte here asked me if I'd consider being an instructor. So here I am. All right.
We can go.
Oh.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Jim Berg, I've been paddling for about 50 years. Canoes, kayaks, sea kayaks, whitewater kayaks. I used to be a moving water instructor, certified by Marge Klein 20-something years ago, and several of us are working on becoming recertified this year.
I'll go next. Hi, LaDonna Taylor. This is my third year. We took up paddling during COVID and flat water.
My name's Brian Plunkett. I am a very happy member of Prairie State Canoeists because of stuff like this today. And I found them because I was looking for somewhere safe to learn how to be a better paddler and meet cool people. And so here we are.
Cool. John Hudson. I've been paddling canoes and kayaks for all my life. Also one of the instructors today.
I'm Steve. I'm a safety boater. My name is Chip. I took the kayak paddling class with Marlene a couple weeks ago. Don't have much more experience other than scouts when I was younger. But I pick up things really quickly. So I'm hoping to have a bunch of fun today.
Awesome.
I'm John Clinton. I've been paddling maybe about 7 years, and I think I took this class about 7 years ago with you, Marlene, and John Chase.
Yes.
Was there.
Yep.
And I'd like a refresher. I find that when I go on trips a lot, it's just more social and
People frequently do that.
and just paddle like crazy, and I'd like just a little refresher. Thank you.
Dan Borzillo, it's my third year with the club. I paddle kayak.
I'm Ashley. This is my second class. I also did the intro to paddling with my husband a few weeks ago, and we're new to the club, so we're just excited to learn all the safety things and meet new people.
Hi, I'm David Duffy. I'm LaDonna's husband, and yeah, we've been doing it together for about 3 years and have put ourselves on rivers and trying to learn the hard way. It'll be nice to know something about what we're doing.
I'm Mary Jane Cross, or go by Jane. My husband Bruce and I got a kayak last year.
Got a single.
And we started in a tandem, but now we have singles, and I guess this is our second year paddling with the club. But we have done a lot of canoeing in earlier years, and you will see me revert to canoe strokes. It just kind of happens. Yeah.
I'm Mary Jane's husband.
Very good.
What else are you going to add?
During COVID, I built us a triple kayak, so that's what we've been using, but then we went to singles last year, just because the rivers were getting shallower and shallower, and I was tired of recoating the bottom of the boat. And look forward, just like to meet people.
I'm Joan Winsenson. I've been paddling sporadically probably for about 20 years, and I had to laugh. When I took a trip last year, and the leader said, "So, have you taken a class lately?" I said, "Oh, I better do that again." Brush up on some skills.
My turn?
Just
in time.
Nice.
Unbelievable. I'm Hitesh. I joined the group last year, did several trips, and yeah, it's been great fun. Yes.
I'm Steve Laporte. We've been talking.
Steve, yes, good to see you. Yes, I did see you on YouTube yesterday, and I realized I should recognize you today.
See me on YouTube.
Oh, Facebook.
You're a star.
The video.
The
video for
something.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll take your word for it. I didn't know I was being videoed.
No, you knew.
Superstar.
For sure, my friend.
You and Marlena were doing instruction.
On YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Pass that out.
What the heck?
All right.
I was going to ask for your autograph.
I know. And I need your waiver.
All right, yes.
Introducing yourself.
I don't have much of a voice, and the doctors can't seem to do anything for me. So you'll have to listen up. I will not be directly teaching you on the water. I have 3 assistants. Would you raise your hand, Jim? They will take groups of 5. They are all competent. They're all earning their right to be certified in August. And so this is a good training facility for them. And it solves the problem that nobody can hear me. So the way the day's going to go, we're going to do the on-land portion of describing the various features in a river and what to look out for and how to handle them. Then we're going to shuttle. We're going to put in at River Crossing Road. And after we shuttle down to the bridge just before the farm cake house, which we're no longer using. And so we'll go from there. Any questions to get started? Nope. All right. So which of you 3 guys are starting off this program?
Me?
Oh, come on, look like you know what you're doing.
Do it,
Are we talking about this thing?
Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to start, but you guys can kick it whenever you want to. First thing, there used to be a dam right over here, and that was removed, I don't know, 2 years ago or so. Yeah. And it's a low-head dam, and low-head dams are notoriously a dangerous place to be. And you can see them when you're going down the river by a horizontal line straight across the river. Sometimes natural features will look like that too, but there's usually breaks in there where you can actually go through. But a low-head dam would be just a straight line right across. And so when you're paddling over here, you're not going to see this. You're going to see that. And so when you see that thing, get over to the side, get out, scout it, and definitely don't run it. Because if any people have died, like in Yorkville, I think 22 people died in that dam before they rebuilt it to make it safer.
This dam had a body count.
This one did too?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, that's one of the reasons why they took it out, right?
Well, in fact, I was teaching a class here several years ago, and the night before they'd had a drowning. We got down to Mound Road, and there was yellow police tape all over where they'd found the body.
Oh boy.
Made you a believer. Yeah. Stay away from dams.
So when you see a dam, get out, carry around, because if you don't, this is going to happen. You're going to go over the dam. Sometimes you get stuck right there and you fall in. then the circulating wave will just roll you and roll you and roll you. Sometimes you can see logs in there that have been there for weeks or days. So just avoid them, completely avoid them. Don't ever run them.
There are no signs by the dam that indicate
There
that there is a
usually
dam?
are,
Yeah.
but you got to pay attention.
Yeah, there's usually not a cable or a rope across because that itself is dangerous. But there's signs on this one. I know for sure there are. But if you're not paying attention, you're just floating down the river. And even worse, you're floating down the river drinking beer. Good chance you're gonna become a victim. And so carry around the dam, launch in the river. I'm gonna just cover.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, what is this that John's holding up?
This is a picture that Marlene just gave me about, this is what recirculation looks like. I can pass it around if you want to look at some more detail.
The recirculation it will depend on how big the drop is and how strong the current is. Sometimes just a little wave right here, and other times it can go out, what, 10, 15 feet, 20 feet maybe. So you think you could be putting it over here, but that wave is still sucking you back into that thing. So you want to put in well down river of the dam.
You can generally see the pullback area.
Yeah, there's a
in the
boil
water.
line here that
Yeah.
kind of goes, sucks, the current comes here and goes that way, and that current goes that way. We used to be able to walk down and watch the dam, but the dam isn't here anymore, luckily.
Less dangerous examples would be like at the Skokie Lagoons, in between the different lagoons where they have those little drop-offs, those little portages, right?
Yeah, I haven't really seen those in years, so I don't know.
The
I can't comment
Skokie,
on it.
okay.
When you are on the other side, how do you spot that there is a drop coming?
Straight line, horizon line, a flat horizon line.
Very subtle, many times. You don't necessarily see it.
Yeah, you don't see any of this
So that's the
turbulent
crack
water.
that you were referring to, the glass crack in the video.
Exactly, the
it's something
cracked
that-
glass.
It's hard to see if you've never seen one before.
Now, sometimes you'll see a fisherman with no legs,
Right.
an outhouse that's about this tall, just the roof of a car. What you're actually seeing is people standing below the dam fishing, or the outhouse below the dam. You're not seeing what's down here.
You're seeing the water here and the water here that look the same.
So
And then
if
a
you
little
see a fisherman with no legs or a short outhouse, think dam and go scout it.
Once it's a large dam, then you can't see
Or the
people,
Well,
right?
then you'll
true.
probably hear it. It'll be
Yeah,
roaring.
yeah,
Remember at Bussy Lake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that low.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to just cover one important,
Yeah, or at the Skokie.
Or like when we were in Wisconsin, that one dam. We heard it.
one important technique to avoiding all these obstacles down here, and these guys can take over, and that's the back ferry. And by back ferry, I mean you want to be able to kick your stern out to the direction you want to go. This is river right, this is river left. That's always the case. So if you're facing this way, this is still river left, even though it's on your right. So just make sure you learn that term, because people will say eddy out river right or eddy out river left, and that's river right, that's river left. So if you're paddling along here and you see this stuff, you can decide, well, I'm going to go through there, or maybe I don't want to try that. Rather than trying to overpower and paddle this way, because the current's pushing you this way too. You want to be able to kick your stern out and then back paddle, and the force of the current will slide that boat right across just by back paddling. It's easier in a kayak than a canoe. Canoe takes a little more effort because you only have one blade in the water, but most people have kayaks here, right? Everyone does.
So when you say back paddle, you're
Back
doing
paddling,
both
not pedal.
sides?
Paddle.
Yeah, paddle.
So Jim,
This will make a lot more sense when we get on the river
Yeah.
and we actually
Yeah.
demonstrate it and start to
Yeah.
practice
so
it.
Jim,
Yes.
where's the majority of the current in the river right
The
there?
majority of the current's going to be pushing to the outer bank.
So that's an outer turn, right?
Yeah, this is. But I just wanted to get the ferry thing down.
Right,
These guys
right.
can take over.
So where's the least amount of current?
In here, right, inner bank.
On the inside.
Yeah.
That's where you should be back from, typically.
Well, there's a lot of junk over here, but I mean,
You're in the slower current on the inside. Right?
okay. Well, I
Set
don't
your
want to really
ferry
go
up.
into that stuff. I'm going to continue with the back ferry. You want to back
You're
ferry
going to find
across
out
here.
that different
and
parts
go
of the
through
river
there.
have different current, and that current differential is going to play with your boat angle. That's something you have to experience. You will experience it today.
I think what Jim's trying to really get across is that it's important as you're going, and he was referring to, there's a bunch of consequences here. So instead of like just coming up upon them and dealing with them, if you put your boat in a position of safety, or at least slow down. Like allow the current to continue its path. You control your boat so that you can make a plan and see like where is it safe for me to go, or do I need to change my boat position to be able to allow for a safe maneuver around whatever those consequences
And that's
are.
what the back ferry does.
A back
It
ferry
gives
is a
you
really
that
good
time.
tool for using that to give you time and to stabilize and have boat control and
I
give
argue
yourself.
that's the most useful skill you can
Yeah.
can use can learn today.
And my
by far.
argument is that for all of you, pay attention, because this is a thinking person's sport. You cannot just float down the river. You have to be alert all the time, because some of
Harmony with the power of the water and your boat and yourself, and bouncing off stuff, it's not a big deal. If you get stuck on it, it's not a big deal. It's part of the fun of the day.
and you can do a 360 turn.
You
when
can do all.
do.
You can play all kinds of stuff. You can actually find your pivot point, and you can do paddle strokes, and you can like spin the boat around, and like so that it's not dangerous. It's how you act and how you control your boat and your mindset. So like this is all fun and play.
That's a great answer.
So the other thing is, if you are hung up on that, and if you do there's a bunch of different strokes that we'll go over today, a stern draw or a rudder or a sweep, or you can do a bunch of stuff to capture the power of the water to turn the boat in the direction you want it to be going, to roll off of that obstacle. But the good thing is because you found that obstacle, you now have an eddy right behind it. So you could just let the water spin the whole boat around. You might not even have to do anything, and eventually it'll just turn you around, and then you'll be in calm moving water or non-moving water, because that obstacle has created an eddy for you to be, especially if it's a condition like this where there's a bunch of stuff that you need to also deal with. And the boat will float and steer in any direction, right? So just because you're backwards doesn't mean that you're in danger. It's just that's where you are. And so then you can make a decision on how do you want that currents coming through here? How do you want to peel out this way? Probably not. Do you want to peel out this way? Maybe yeah. You might boof again and then hang up on that rock and let that turn you around. And so being touched and hung up on stuff is just like totally it's fun for me. Like
through, and you are not in control. You have to start worrying and thinking what your options are. But I've seen people after this demonstration panic at the sight of a tree overhanging the river, losing their paddle, dumping, stuff like that. It's not necessary, especially on a river like this.
If you find yourself actually pushed into a strainer and you can't scooch yourself off, it depends on how strong the current is. And if it's a dangerous situation, the best thing to do is to climb onto that strainer and get out of your boat.
Right.
Let the boat go under it, because otherwise you can end up down here, and once you're down there, that's like that's not a good spot to be.
No.
But stabilize yourself first. Just get calm, lean into it, grab it, make sure everything is stable. Nothing's going to happen as long as you're in control and you're not worried about it.
I wasn't worried about it until it happened.
Yeah. Right.
But like
Going flat. Your boat's always on some sort of edge, and the rule of thumb is always expose the bottom of your boat to the oncoming current. So if you're doing an eddy turn, I won't get into how to do the eddy turn, but if you're doing eddy turns, you're coming in here, the current's going this way, but this current's going that way. So when you cross that eddy line, you want to be leaning into it, kind of like on a bicycle. You don't turn right on a bicycle and lean to the left. Well, certain motorcycle racers do that, but that's different. You want to expose your bottom of your boat to that oncoming current and then get in that eddy. And same thing when you come out of the eddy. If you just come out like this, there's a good chance that current's going to grab the upriver side of your kayak or canoe and just flip you that way. So you want to come out of here with a strong lean. You almost can't lean too much. Well, you could, but just as a rule of thumb, always be leaning as you're going in and out of eddies, or as you're ferrying. This is called an upriver ferry.
Yeah, that's
forward ferry. It's similar to the back ferry, but now you're facing upstream, so you don't ferry just flat. You ferry with a slight lean, so that current is pushing that way, and it's not going to do this to you.
Another way to describe it is called edging. So the boat's got edges. You can see this one's got a little black line on the edge, and so the boat can actually be floating and stable, very, very angled.
It's like laying on your bed on your side.
Yeah, so you're not in any danger unless you can't execute a brace or another stroke to right the boat. But the reason that it's important is because you want to have the current pushing on the bottom of the boat, never on the top of the boat. Because if it pushes on the top of the boat, you're going upside down. But if it's pushing on the bottom, it's going to continue to keep you up. But also it changes like if you see an imaginary line down this boat, that's the longest line of the boat. So that's the most effort to turn the boat. As you edge the boat, the line gets shorter. That shortened line makes it easier to turn the boat. So if you edge and execute a number of different kinds of strokes, it helps you with boat control.
Danger because of all the points on it, and you can get caught up in it and stuff. But it's also a danger because sometimes they're hidden and you can't see them, and you're for some reason you have to get out of your boat and walk, and you step on one of those. So there's no good way of identifying them unless one of you three do know of any.
I don't think there's any on this stretch, is there?
There's an electric fence on the Mazan that does the same thing.
Right. Yeah, so it's just, if you're in farm country, be aware that it's possible that there could be barbed wire in your way.
And why is it barbed? Why do they use barbed wire? I hear about the house. Oh, because of the cows.
If they own the land on both sides, the cows will be crossing the river, and that keeps them in their land. Yeah.
It's like cattle guards in the water.
Exactly right. That is what it is.
The Nippersink has two sections of areas with barbed wire on it.
Yeah, I have lots of barbed wire on my place because it was to keep the cows on the land.
Wouldn't it look like a strainer
that they run across also?
You might be able to see the post.
It's hard to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Depending on the water level, determines whether you can see it or not.
What to do. And so one thing you could do is, for one thing, you're more in control of your situation if you're either going faster or slower than the current. But if you're just going with the current, you don't have a lot of control over your boat. So what I would do if I was seeing this, I would come up to here and I would back ferry. And to me it's easier in a kayak than a canoe because you have a blade on both sides. I would back ferry and see, like, okay, where do I want to go? Do I want to go in that fast moving water over here? Or do I want to go between these two rocks? And so I might just back ferry here and then say, oh, I'm going to just go right through there. So it's a useful tool for whenever you want to just kind of pause for a minute in the river. Say you see something that looks like a horizon line, but it's not a flat line, but you can see there's a bunch of rocks there. Rather than just guessing, come up close to it, because sometimes you get this kind of a situation and you don't really know where the rocks are or where the open currents are. And so rather than just going through full speed, just kind of back ferry, back forward, you can go back this way a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to come here and then right through there. So you're completely under control rather than just letting the river take you where it wants to. And then the last thing, this is from Marge Klein. The rock is your friend. If you ever do get pinned on a rock, hug the rock and then try to get your boat either that way, and you can actually grab the rock and use it as leverage to pull your boat around this way or that way. And be aware of what's below. Like if these things are there, don't go that way, go this way.
You can even get through class 5 rapids with that technique. So your hands are more than for holding your paddle. Would one of you discuss how to recognize currents and what kind of currents?
Between upriver current and downriver current. So as water's flowing down the river, it's hitting obstacles, and that flow is being diverted around those obstacles. And so that adds pressure, higher pressure on the sides of it and lower pressure behind it. So the water is actually coming back upriver. You'll actually see it. Stuff's floating and it'll be hung up and kind of just dancing behind these obstacles. So that's the eddy, is where the water is either stable and slow or it's actually flowing. When they're bigger eddies, you'll actually see a river flowing upstream in those areas. And when you get, like, let's say we had just two obstacles and Santa's not in the way, Now you've got, and we were also talking about the downward V. So when we've got two obstacles creating two eddy lines and they come to a V, the water will be thick and green and there's not a lot of foam, and at the eddy line is where the turbulence was mentioned is happening, where the two water directions are kind of mixing. And
See
so
air bubbles.
yeah, and so they're a really helpful feature to notice, because then that's where you're doing the work to change your boat position, to get into, if you want to just kind of run down the river, that's fine, but if you want it, and playing in the eddies is a really good habit. So you come in and you can either do, you know, either way, eddy turn into right there, and then you can stop paddling because the river will be just holding you there because of the dynamics of the hydraulics.
Sometimes the river's actually pushing you up against that rock.
It might push you up against the rock, yeah,
the eddy's
if it's
strong
flow, yeah.
So we'll practice this quite a bit today.
Oh yeah.
This will be a
The safe way to paddle them is straight through, as long as you know how to balance with your paddle. So when we see one, there's one spot here on the river if we have enough water, and that's a big if, where we'll see some small standing waves, but at least it's a way to practice. And for those of you who are thinking that one day they're going to do Lake Michigan, it's a good skill to acquire.
What causes the standing wave? It's the river is actually dropping down, going over a drop you might not see, and then the water's coming back up. It's sometimes can create a little surfing wave.
Right.
It might look like a rock, but it's white water, but it's a place where you can actually surf.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let's talk about what happens when somebody dumps. What does the dumpy do?
Well, new
Not
kayakers
panic.
spread their stuff out in the river. It's called a yard sale. And as time goes on, you start making sure stuff is strapped in better. You want to be aware, though, that you don't have like lots of long lines that can entangle you, because that could be bad.
We don't want anybody strangling.
Generally, you want to be prepared for submersion, regardless of how beautiful the day is. If the water was 30 degrees, you're not going to be in that water very long and happy, right? So attire is very important to consider during all of this stuff. But then, like, a lot of people are kind of nervous about dumping, and they avoid it at all costs, and it really should be the opposite. I mean, really, we should get in the water first and learn how to get out of our boats and back in our boats, and how to bring. Most of the time, you're going to be able to just bring it to shore or bring it to a boulder and dump the water out. But avoiding getting wet is kind of it's like the opposite of why you're even in the river. Water is awesome. It's healing. It's fun. It's refreshing. It's exciting. It can be tranquil and beautiful. It feeds the nature. So being afraid of dumping is actually going to cause you to make poor decisions, instead of just being, okay, I don't want to dump, so what can I do about it? I can do this over here. And like, instead of, and the other thing is, don't look at the trouble. Identify it, understand that it's there, look at where you want to go. Don't look at where you don't want to go, because it's called target fixation, and that is where you will end up. If you're like, oh my God, I don't want to go there, boom, that's where you're at. So instead of like, okay, I see a hazard, now let's go, this way. And then
Okay, so now once the person has dumped, what happens?
So what's the first thing you think of if you're in the water?
Get out.
Don't stand up.
Yeah, don't stand up.
Most of the time.
Good.
Why not? Why don't you stand up?
You get your foot
Foot
caught in
entrapment.
the crevices, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a real thing, foot entrapment.
I think that might be the #1 killer on.
It is.
So
Number
and you
one
would
cause of drowning on rivers.
never stand up if it's at your knees or above.
Even if, yeah.
Even if you think you can stand it, don't. Get
Because the force
shallower.
of the water is stronger than you, no matter how deep or shallow it is.
And what do you
So
do?
if you're not going to
wanna
stand, what do you
float
do?
Float on your back in a defensive position, sorry.
Turtle.
That's the correct answer.
Your feet downstream,
Turtle.
so they
I
can't
was-
get stuck.
I was
Let me
on
demo
the-
And
it
then
over
back
here.
pedal.
Yeah, demo.
Backstroke.
Never put my feet down below the surface of the river.
Can you turn over and swim there, Steve?
I've swam into eddies doing that,
Yeah.
but for the most part, you want to be on your back.
how quickly do you want to grab your kayak?
You don't.
Okay.
Somebody else will
Hold
do
on
that.
your paddle
Okay.
if you
Hear
can.
that question?
Let the kayak go.
Okay.
We'll recover.
Saying, so I'm confused a little.
I just said you can hand your paddle or toss it to a nearby kayaker. They can take
right.
it for you as well.
I mean, yeah, we're all here as a team, so we're all here to help each other.
That brings up the next question, as Steve said. What happens to the people who didn't dump? What's their role in this scenario?
To help you
You
recover.
watch, because there's professionals to do this. Stay out of the way.
It's
Chip,
get over to the side, right?
The first one is don't become another victim. So get to a safe place. We're going to also go over hand signals or paddle signals and some
whistles.
nonverbal communication stuff so you can see farther. You're not going to be able to hear me 50 yards away, but you'll be able to see paddle signs. So if
We'll do that when we put in.
So if you see somebody go in, say boat over. And so that'll alert other people. So, you know, we've got 5 or 6 people here that are fairly trained in dumping. I do it all the time because
there you go.
I like to play in the water. So boat over tells people around you that there's somebody in the water. And then if they get out of their boat and now you see them up above water, now you say swimmer. So now we know that they're safer. It's not as much of an immediate reaction thing. But
Is it 3 whistles?
if you, yes, you
That'll
can
work.
do, sure,
Talk
3
loud
whistles, or just keep blasting the whistle. If there's something wrong, blast that whistle until there's not anything wrong anymore. Sure, burst of 3 is the international sign for emergency and SOS and all that. But just
Hey, I just wanted to mention one thing. We didn't really talk about how to actually do an eddy turn.
well, yeah, we will.
But give me 30 seconds.
Let's talk about the people out of the water first.
If you're,
Oh yeah, let's finish that.
Oh, I thought you were done with it. I'm sorry.
Nope.
No, so you've got
The
the
rescue people?
Right, we've got rescue people that will be helping the swimmer, and maybe we'll get one of you guys. Hey, can you go get that boat? And then you get the boat either to another boat to empty, or to some object in the water, or you take it to shore and get the water out, get the person's bearings back, and find the water bottle and all the stuff, and then we just go keep playing some more.
If you're having trouble getting out of the river and you're at shore, make use of the reed canary grass and other wild plants that are growing along shore. Their root systems are so deep that they can hold you and your boat stable in a fast current even. So,
Well, the river bank's got built-in handles.
correct.
If you grab onto the tall grass and
Just choose wisely.
You're talking about?
Yeah, just the basically where, like, you should be entering the eddy perpendicular to it, rather than trying to do this kind of a thing. So, I like to take my last stroke on the left side, the downriver side, with a kayak paddle, and then lean into it, and then the current's going to grab the front of your boat and turn you. And so it's, rather than like this, you want to come in like that, and as close to the rock as you can get. And then same thing when you come out, lean and then down.
And coming out is called a peel out. So the thing about eddy lines, which are the white lines on the river, is that they will dump you. You need to make sure that when you're crossing an eddy line, I know he's backwards, but you can do it backwards too. The boat the part of your boat that's crossing the line should be more than halfway over before you take your next stroke. Because if you're not halfway over, if you're sitting on the eddy line, you're going to probably dump.
Yeah, that's a real good point. Punch through the eddy lines. Don't dawdle there.
Yeah.
Because it's
And
current's unstable.
As you're learning eddies and peel outs, that's the most common cause of dumping.
So if Santa's sitting right here, he's going to be in trouble. Everybody understand why? Why is that a problem to be sitting right on the eddy line like that?
Because the current's pushing you this way.
Exactly. You got 2 completely different currents that are hitting your boat at the same time. That is a really unstable place to sit.
The things that'll get you hidden.
Another one could be, let's say there's 5 boats and this wasn't a dam, and you would come down the river and you came up to this, and person in the front starts to back ferry, but person 2 and 3 don't pay attention, and then you get a bunch of boats piling up on each other. So the other boats could also become a consequence for river conditions.
To Steve's point, if these things weren't here, I would definitely back ferry. Again, stern pointing to the direction you want to go, back ferry here, and then just go through there. But since this stuff was here,
you can take it off. That's good.
Well, and the reason is because as the river turns, it speeds up on the outside.
Yeah.
So the water is slower here and faster on the outside of a turn.
And that causes erosion, which causes
strainers.
All right.
So the main lesson for today really is going to be about reading the water. I think everybody understands that. So the different ideas that we want to learn on reading the water are how to identify where's the channels, where's going to be the deepest water. And with the low level conditions today, it's a perfect opportunity for us to see a lot of these rocks and consequences. Strainers we're always going to see, but these are going to pop up even more to enable us to figure out where we want to actually drive the kayak to get around these things. So as the others have already said, the outside of the bend is typically going to be your faster water. You're typically going to find your channels here. Over here, it's going to be much shallower. In a high water situation where the water is moving very fast, you may want to avoid the fast water because that just may be too much. It may drive you into some consequences or cause problems.
Yeah, if you had,
and then you'd want to back ferry into an area like that. Exactly.
If you had a strainer on the outside of a turn, you're going to have a lot of water pushing underneath that. So that's a really dangerous thing to get into.
So the other major thing that we really want to understand is looking for V's to identify where the channel is. Has anybody seen that before? Have you heard that idea before?
On the video.
Good. Nice. So you watched the video.
How many people watched the video? All right.
That was a tricky way to see who watched the video.
We've experienced a lot of large rocks, and we've sat and we've determined, okay, let's go this way or let's go this way. So
exactly.
We've experienced it in person.
Yes. So even if you don't see the rock sitting up above the water, you may see something like this, where you see these eddy lines that we've drawn with the strings. So if a rock is submerged underneath there, you may not see it or just barely see it, but you still see the eddy line coming out from that. If you see something pointing at you, that's probably a consequence, and you want to either go around it to the right or go around it to the left. Typically, if you have several things, a boulder garden that we will experience today, if you've got a couple of rocks like this, you're going to see a V that you're going to want to head down. A V going the direction that you're trying to go, that's where you're going to find the majority of the water. That's going to be your channel to be able to get through these consequences safely.
And the V is open at the top, closed at the bottom as you face it.
So, yeah, opposed to these V's, which are caused by rocks, the V is pointing to you, so you want to avoid those.
So the V that you're going with, or a tongue, some people call it, that's the direction that you want to take your kayak.
Can we go over what it's like and how to navigate 2 strainers in the same area?
Absolutely. Yes.
Because
this here?
we've experienced that, and I had a bad experience with that.
Yeah.
So like this?
Yeah, and you're only given the one to go through, and you still have some issues.
Exactly. Or you may not have anything at all. You may be like this.
Yep, we come across that.
I've experienced these as well. I'm sure we all have that are here. So who has an idea? You're coming down here. Do you identify which is that you've got an outside and the inside bend, right? So what are the things as a kayaker that you're thinking about right now if you're Santa Claus?
You're going to want to stay on the inside because the current is not as fast as the outside.
Exactly. The inside is typically going to be a slower current, so you're going to be able to take your time, control things, possibly be able to get out here and walk around here in either portage or identify it. Or if you're lucky enough to have Steve or somebody else who has a hacksaw with you, he'll come and cut it out for you and make a little space and you can get right through.
Or if you can't portage and you don't have a saw, hopefully you have someone with you that can help hoist the boats over it.
Exactly.
And get back in it.
That's Chip, right?
Yeah.
Another thing is typically, I think Steve Glass mentioned this, but the outer bend with the faster waters going there, and most likely there's more undercut bank and the bank is higher, so it's making it difficult. The bank might be this high, so it makes it more difficult to lift your boat onto that tall bank. And these are usually like gravel bars here,
Or it might
sand
be
bars.
or it might be super deep, right?
Yeah,
And then
the
you
water's
can't
gonna
get
be
out.
deeper there. If you get out your boat, it might be up to here. You don't want to do that either.
And it's these fast undercuts that typically down the trees right there, which is why you're going to typically see your consequences more likely on the outside. If you're coming up to a blind curve, that's where I would guess or expect it to be. The faster water on the outside.
So if it's separated like this and you only have the one pathway, how do you kind of like navigate? Do you back paddle so you can get through it slowly, or?
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, like what you don't want to
line
do.
it up and just shoot, right?
If you're over here, you don't want to just try to muscle it around that thing, because there's a good chance you're just going to end up in there.
Yeah.
So in that case, I would back ferry like this with complete control, and then go through. One other thing I wanted to mention.
What's dangerous with low water conditions that we're facing right now, with an inside bend, guys?
It gets really,
Who
really
knows?
shallow.
There you go. And what's that called, guys? A shoal?
Who said shoal? That's correct.
Yeah.
Oh, you
So
did?
what-
I thought somebody else said it.
So what's dangerous with a shoal on the inside bend? With strainers.
You get stuck.
Hit the shoal. What happens to your kayak when you hit the shoal right here?
It spins out and you go sideways down the river.
Your
Right
bow,
into it.
Your bow can go into the gravel and stop the boat, but the current can grab the rear end of your boat and turn you and still push you into the strainer.
So we're going to practice eddy turns today. This is kind of like an eddy turn where you're going to get stuck on the shoal, flipped right around.
We're going to avoid getting stuck on shoals.
Yep.
I'm asking all these questions because
Excellent questions.
we came into a strainer and he
Yeah.
was ahead of me,
Yep.
and I thought I lined my boat up like his. We're in very different boats, but I didn't have the paddling skills, and it caught the back end of my boat, and I did get pinned up against the strainer and it ripped from me. So
That's another good question. So if you're in here and you have a consequence like this, you're in a strainer, as opposed no panicking answers, what else do we do? Besides panic.
You lean towards the current.
Lean into
Or
the
yeah.
consequence.
Yeah, that's it.
You always lean into it. You want to grab it with your hands and climb on it if you can. See where the bottom of the boat is here? The water is now hitting the bottom of the boat and it's keeping him sitting up like this.
I think
If
that's
Which is
what
the opposite of what you want to do. Your body says go away from it. Right?
What's intuitive is to say, get me away from this.
Yeah, right.
And you see where Santa's edge of his
Now you
kayak
flip.
is?
Now you're
The water's going to now sweep the bottom edge of his kayak right over, and he's going to go under the kayak and likely under the strainer and get pinned under there and have a major problem.
Yeah.
Anytime you hit something, you always want to grab onto it. You want to lean into a tree like this. If you're coming around a rock and you're going to hit it, you want to lean into the rock so that you can get around it. You do not want to lean away from it.
Hug the
Okay,
rock.
Excellent question.
Can I ask a question about the invisible hazard? I hit it on the displays the other day.
Sure.
Going as fast as I can go in a race, trying to really paddle.
Yeah.
And I slam a log or slam a rock.
You just
hoping
piton
the
right
boat's
into a
okay.
rock.
And
Yep.
your boat becomes so unstable, and then you may stop. I mean, what's the right way to try to
That's what
address the
braces
initial
are
panic
for.
moment of, oh my God, what did I just hit? And
Good
what do
question.
you want to do? Brace, or what are you trying to do?
Well,
in that
braces are
situation?
useful for that type of
Excellent
thing.
question.
Yeah.
Anybody have ideas? What would you do? You've got this rock that's you just barely see or didn't even see. You come and hit it. That's the question, right?
Yeah, it didn't. And
Now what do we do?
No water change.
I would try to
it
get my
just
boat
literally
sideways.
I
on
would
top
back
of it.
ferry.
Back ferry is a perfect answer. If you
pull
can,
back
if
off
you
the
can
boat,
back off of it,
off
the water may be a little bit fast, so you may not be able to. But backing off of it is definitely a great answer.
And if it's fast, do you kind of like get parallel to it to go around it?
You don't want to get parallel to it.
No, you don't.
No.
If you're talking about doing like this,
Yeah.
this is called a broach.
Okay.
If you come up on a rock, you could easily get broached like that.
Oh.
And then we've got another issue, which is where now our kayak is stuck on the rock and we can't get around it.
Well, that's why you have two hands.
That's true, and a paddle. So if you can get around front, that's great. If you happen to be like this and you're at the back of it, is much more in the current, there is nothing wrong with just back pedaling over here and going right around this way and getting yourself out of it.
And we will
But what if I'm on
have
top of it? What if I've now gotten stuck?
If you're right on the rock, so you're like this.
Bang it, and now I'm stuck on top of some obstruction. I can't even tell what it is.
If
Yep.
your hands
What am I
can
doing?
reach the outside and onto the rock,
Yep.
you can lift yourself off and
It's not
move.
that big. It's small. I mean, it's small. It's the size of your kayak. You're on
Right.
top of the
I'm
obstruction.
giving you options.
So continue
Sure.
Yeah.
scooching forward and move yourself off of it,
That's
or
what you gotta do.
depending
Just go right
on
like
where
that.
your pivot point is on the boat,
Right.
rotate the boat to spin yourself off.
Into the
And if you rotate
Depends
the
on
boat,
how much
which
current
direction?
you have to work with.
I get it, but if are you turning the stern to the current?
It
at that
doesn't
point?
matter.
It doesn't
Well,
matter.
think
Just
about
get
Depends
off
on
of
your
the obstruction.
skills.
if you got a
Depends
current
on
difference.
your paddling skills.
Okay.
If the water's moving very fast over here and slower over here,
Yeah.
and you start to turn this way,